These are the ultimate animals. Here in the Arctic, temperatures can drop to a brutal -60 degrees Fahrenheit. In these conditions, exposed human skin can freeze in under 5 minutes. But what we call inhospitable, the polar bear calls home.
Polar bears are literally the ultimate of the bears. They're these giant white bears roaming around in an environment that looks more like the surface of the moon. To think that an animal can make a living out there is pretty impressive.
They even have a third eyelid, which acts like sunglasses to prevent snow blindness. In fact, every part of this master adapter is a testament to how perfectly built they are for their environment. Beginning with this, a liver so specialized, adding it to your diet could kill you, and that's after your skin peels off. A polar bear's liver contains 10 to 20 times more vitamin A than almost any other mammal on Earth. It's an adaptation for surviving almost exclusively on seal fat, which just happens to be super high in vitamin A.
Goes right into their body as storage, and it's that highly rich food, that highly nutritious food that has allowed polar bears to become the largest of all the bears.
And also the bear with the largest amount of vitamin A in its liver. It contains over 30 times the recommended daily allowance in humans. It would take 43 boxes of fortified cereal flakes to equal the vitamin A in just 1 gram of polar bear liver. If a human tried to harness some of that power, the results wouldn't be pretty. It starts with a headache. Your vision blurs. Next thing you know, your skin starts to peel, and death comes calling. Diagnosis: polar bear poisoning. So hold the onions. This liver is off the menu. The polar bear lives in a land cold enough to turn motor oil into ice cubes. Here, you need to be so good at keeping warm, you're invisible to infrared. First, if you look beneath the polar bear's fur, you'll see that this white warrior is actually black. That dark color soaks up the sun's rays for warmth, just like a car's leather seats on a sunny day. But it takes more than sunshine to keep warm in the Arctic. So under that black skin, the polar bear has a 4-inch thick layer of blubber to trap in its body heat. That fat keeps them so well insulated that when you look at a polar bear on an infrared camera, you see nothing at all. Okay, almost nothing.
If you fly over it with an infrared camera, most of the body doesn't glow very strongly at all. So they're relatively hidden from the standpoint of how much heat they radiate.
In a habitat like the Arctic, you have to figure out a way to hunt your prey without being seen.
They figured out it's better to be white. If you're out here in a white environment, to sneak up on seals.
Even more ingenious, they figured out how to look white without actually being white. Polar bear hairs are transparent and hollow. When sunlight penetrates the clear, hollow hair, it bounces off the inner core, then gets scattered back out into the environment. So why the white appearance?
The normal ambient light that comes from the sun, we call white light. Sometimes in really bright light, the polar bears almost look like they're glowing because of the way that the light is scattered. They look almost too white to be natural.
But if you're a seal, all you'll see is another white mound on a landscape of white mounds, until you see nothing at all. A polar bear's bite is estimated to be more powerful than a great white shark, and it has the biggest paws of any bear, a full 12 to 18 inches across. at least an inch larger than most dinner plates.
And that is huge, and they actually have been known to kill an animal with just one single blow. That's how strong these guys are.
But the polar bear isn't just a fighter. It's also perfectly adapted for love. With a nose that can sniff out a mate from over 200,000 feet away. Looking for love can be hard when you're as spread out as polar bears.
When I was radio tracking polar bears in northern Alaska, the largest activity area that I measured was 230,000 square miles, or nearly the size of the state of Texas.
A long way to go for love. But distance makes the heart grow fonder and smellier. A brand new study released in early 2015 shows that female polar bears use special scent glands in their paws to leave love notes in the snow. And the male gets the message.
We've seen situations where we're following a bear from a helicopter and it was kind of meandering around like this, and all of a sudden, boom, it took off in a straight line for 40 miles. When we caught up with it, it was right on the tail of a female that was in breeding condition.
A polar bear can eat the equivalent of an entire adult human in just one sitting. Once a polar bear digs into its meal, it can gorge on 150 pounds of meat at a time. That's up to 20% of its own body weight. If a 170-pound man ate 20% of his own weight, that would be like scarfing down a 34-pound steak. Just like dolphins, whales, and even seals, the polar bear is considered a marine mammal.
All of their nutrition comes from that marine food chain, and so they've been classified as marine mammals.
The female polar bear has an ingenious trait for surviving at the top of the world. It's her ability to conserve the energy needed to survive by stopping a pregnancy in its tracks. First, the egg is fertilized, and the race is on for the female to put on as much weight as possible, over 400 pounds in just a few months. But here's the amazing part. If she doesn't gain enough weight, her body can stop the pregnancy. So she doesn't waste resources carrying cubs she can't care for. Take a closer look at how it works.
The egg is fertilized, but then development stops at a matter of just a few dozen or a few hundred cells, a stage of development that we call the blastocyst.
That blastocyst will stay in the fallopian tube, and if the polar bear decides she's not fat enough, she will actually reabsorb it into her system. But if the polar bear does commit to the pregnancy, things get really extreme. And as it turns out, the way she gives birth might help give life to humans. When a polar bear goes into her den to give birth, she won't eat, expel waste, or move for the next 7 months. If humans spent that many months lying around, we'd lose a third of our bone mass. And going that long without a bathroom break would kill our kidneys. So it's possible that studying how polar bears survive these extreme conditions could help us better understand things like kidney disease in humans. But that's just a theory. Scientists are already studying the polar bear to provide cures for the approximately 190 million people worldwide suffering from obesity and diabetes. Here's how. When females leave the den, they will have lost half their body weight. But in just a few months, she'll pack it all back on and then some.
That sort of a change in body weight would be lethal to humans.
But amazingly, polar bears are still able to maintain appropriate insulin and blood sugar balances. Studying the polar bear's genes is the first step to creating genetic tools that could one day allow us to cope with our own high-fat diets. Obesity, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, even heart disease. In a real way, the fat of the world's biggest four-legged predator could help cure some of the biggest killers of humans. Now that's an ultimate animal.